It's time to pull up a chair, grab a drink, and talk IDP. Let's talk Dynasty IDP. I have Gary, IDP tipster, and he is the senior IDP analyst for Gridiron Ratings. How we doing tonight, Gary?
I was doing pretty damn good until I crashed your party there on that intro, probably because I had the YouTube video playing with sound in the back. I apologize. I swerved into the other lane off the top there, Dave. But
You're good. I was doing my best, JJ.
Yeah, right. You got to keep an eye on me. All right, I appreciate it. I'm excited to get this done, man. This is a subject done in the past, and I think it's a great time, especially what the situation is right now, to be hitting on.
Yeah, I think right now, when people are preparing for their drafts, you're looking at different rankings. Not every rankings are going to be the same. I like to look at the consensus. And before your draft, we always encourage everybody, mock draft. That is the best way to get your practice in, find out where your rhythm is, where your sweet spots are for DBs, your linebackers, things like that. But when you look at your rankings and you look at the consensus rankings, it's important to find out, who are the best values in the draft and who's too high. So when you look at some of these guys, you're like, man, I love the player, but I'm not going to have him on any of my rosters because he's just way too expensive. And I can't afford to pay, a first round or second round pick for this guy. So you want to get straight into it?
Yeah. Let's roll, man.
So we're using Fantasy Pros, ECR, and you can see right there on the board, here's the top players. So the number one off the board is linebacker 1, Pittsburgh, TJ Watt. We have Micah Parsons, linebacker 2, Darius Leonard, linebacker 3. I am aware that some of your site settings might be different for some of these guys. Nick Bosa comes in at number 4, Roquan Smith at the 5 spot, Devin White at the 6, Derwin James at 7, first safety off the board, Myles Garrett at 8, Jamal Adams at 9, Jordan Brooks at 10. We got back-to-back Seahawks. So we got Chase Young and Foye Oluokun at the 12 spot. So, Gary, who sticks out from this top 12?
Well, I got to say right off the top, I wouldn't be doing this justice if I didn't mention a couple of things. So I have actually ranked for Fantasy Pros a few years altogether, off and on. I do want to mention, I think this is a big deal for people that might not know it because I don't really see anything saying it. But according to the rankings and what they do have going on, they've changed their scoring settings to do the rankings, it looks like. I should add that scoring to a screen or something here, but trust me, I looked it over and it was a lot more tackle based last year. Especially I did rank last year. I went back, looked at a few things. So either I had it totally wrong and I had the wrong paperwork, or I had something, or they have changed how it is. And a couple of the things that really stick out to me, right now we're sitting at, according to their site, is solo tackles is 1.5 points, assisted tackles 0.75. Now I think that's actually about what they were last year. But it's just that everything else was so much lower. It still kept it tackle heavy. That's why you kind of always notice that they didn't have defensive linemen, outside linebackers up in their consensus so much as they do right now. Granted. So, but I mean, they did, I believe, bump up sacks. It's only 4, so it didn't go crazy. But what's really funny is they went 5 points for interception. They went 4 points for forced fumbled recoveries, but they did not raise pass defended. Okay, so me seeing this, that's how I approached looking at this chart. So I look at it more, it's kind of more of a balanced, a little bit for the defensive line boost, but because the sacks didn't really go up that much and the tackle for losses is not over 2.5, it's at 2. I think the big difference is going to be it's kind of a balanced big play, believe it or not. And I think they didn't do the justice. Maybe they should have tweaked it to passes defended. And we're going to, as we go down through here, I'm going to explain why that's coming into effect. We use more of a balanced across the board. Our passes defended is, but that forced fumbles and recoveries at 4 points apart. I've never seen them. They're usually, I use 3, and that's usually the highest I see. So back to your question.
Well, I think it would be good to note that in the comments. So once we get this pushed out, we'll make sure to put that in the comments on YouTube. We can put that in the details on Spotify and make sure you guys understand that. And then we post it on Twitter as well, because the number one rule of all of your leagues is know your settings before your draft.
Yes.
So again, who sticks out of these top 12? Too high, too low?
Let's see. I actually have notes if I was prepared. All right. So I looking at it, I'm going to pick on Derwin James and Jamal Adams being in that top 12 in this format. Again, I just mentioned their passes defended did not go up. I mean, they're based off this format. There's probably no reason to have either one of them in the top 10, top 12. I think you would be targeting other positions. Now, folks, don't take me wrong. These guys are great talents. We know who they are. They are elite guys, but we are kind of cross-examining talent versus scenario and position in the scoring format, in a consensus rankings. So we're going to point this kind of stuff out. But so Derwin James and Jamal Adams a little bit high. Fred Warner in a dynasty, when I'm thinking pure dynasty, I think he's got enough competition and good enough line in front of him. I don't see him dynasty-wise being – I think there's a couple of others, which we're going to mention, that I would rather have ahead of him up in this top 12.
Warner's in the next grouping. You're saying that he should be in the top 12?
Pardon me?
We're going through the top 12 right now. So Warner's at 13. You think he should be in the top 12?
I had him on that borderline, didn't I?
Gotcha.
Yeah. My bad. I thought it was 12.
You're good.
So, he's still a little high for me, though.
Yeah.
He's still a little high for me in that general area. I think there's a few guys low. I think Logan Wilson shouldn't be in 15. I think he should be up there a little bit. I like him dynasty-wise. Now, again, I'm going to repeat, dynasty-wise, it's like if you go to our rankings, when I had the guys pre-ranked before the rookie draft, which we're excited doing some stuff there. We're going to be updating here soon. I told the guys to focus dynasty 2 to 3 year, keeping some redraft in mind, kind of the aggressive way to play dynasty, I suppose you could say. So determining how long you think you want a dynasty players plays into this too. So I should mention, I look at that 3 to 4 year window, and that's it. I usually don't own anybody more than 3 or 4 years. I'm rotating and trading. I like to enjoy doing that. I have that few, but most guys I turn over. I'm not picky. I don't, stomp my foot down. So just letting you know that too. I'm looking for a 3 to 4 year window when I'm making these adjustments.
A couple guys I wanted to ask you about. So Chase Young coming off the injury. He's right there at the 11 spot. What are your thoughts about Chase Young?
It's tough. Anybody that's listened before, it's real tough for me with Chase Young. I'm a Ohio State fan. I liked him in college, but I thought he had some times when, he only played up to the competition a lot. Of course, a lot of those guys, they're worried about the pro career, so I wasn't as high on him coming in that first year. He did impress me more than I thought he would, definitely. But then he comes back and lays an egg. So this could be borderline too high for me. If it wasn't for this format and the ceiling, I would have probably pointed that out.
And then the second guy is Foye Oluokun. He had a huge breakout year last year, but he changes teams, changes schemes. And then the Jaguars went and drafted Devin Lloyd very high, as well as Chad Muma. Those are, pretty well sought after dynasty talents. What are your thoughts here about him being at the 12th spot?
I don't have an argument for it, I guess, because I actually am a fan of his, and I do think he'll go down there and really produce at least his first year more than anybody else on there, and possibly in the second year while they kind of weed things out. Jaguars are still in the process. I know those two rookies are going to be chipping in a lot. I don't have an argument to take him down because the simple fact he's just gotten paid. We're talking 2 to 3 years, 4 years, So I like it. I'm not going to argue it.
Yeah, and and let me know if I get this one right, Gary. So the Jaguars are going to be in a lot of negative game scripts, which means that teams are going to be running against them a lot. Which what I've learned is that that's good for linebackers and teams that are being passed on. That's when you're kind of looking to target the safeties on those teams you're getting passed on more.
Well, I mean, I kind of look at it this way. This is, I don't know in general. I actually look at it that they're just the secondary. I'm not convinced in the safety or the secondary of this. I'm not convinced that they have a elite rush group, Josh Allen or no Josh Allen. They've still got a lot to work on, and I think that they put the right things in place this year to do that. They still need to work on an interior defensive lineman to really put up a fight, to do it. So I think it's going to be more one of those cases where teams might actually be able to do whatever they want to do, pass or run.
No, absolutely. In the first, the beginning of the game, it's definitely going to be do what you want. It's a young defense. They added some great pieces, Trayvon Walker.
Oh, yeah.
They added Devin Lloyd. It's going to be, a fun up-and-coming defense, but it might take a little while for it to gel. So let's get into the next grouping. As we said, Fred Warner is at the number 13 spot, linebacker number 8. A lot of linebackers up there in the top. That's 8 linebackers, top 13. Jesse Bates as the third safety, 14. Logan Wilson's number 15. He's linebacker number 9. Isaiah Simmons is at 16, linebacker number 10. Another safety at 17, Minkah Fitzpatrick, safety number 4. Eric Kendricks is number 18, linebacker 11. Bobby Wagner, 19, linebacker 12. Buda Baker at 20, safety number 5. Another defensive end, Brian Burns, 21. Jordan Poyer, safety at the 22 spot. Montez Sweat at 23, DE 5. And then Harold Landry, linebacker 13.
All right, I'm going to be a little bit more precise, I think, and I should have mentioned the rankings last time, but I'm going to go with Jesse Bates 14, 17 Fitzpatrick. I'm going to mess up Fitzpatrick, and and of course Jordan Poyer. We are talking about a dynasty. I love Jordan Poyer. I think Jordan Poyer is probably going to produce again this year, but that train's got to stop at the station at some point. So. This is a little high for me. I'm picking on the other two just based off the fact of the scoring. I mean, if these guys ain't catching interceptions, they're not going to get a lot of points for those passes defended. So, which is going to lead. You're going to ask me what switched here in a minute on another player when we go into this next section. But let's see. So then Brian Burns, I'm not. I kind of put him and Josh Allen in the same little boat there. I do like Brian Burns, don't get me wrong, and I do like him in this format, but it's questionable that I would have him quite in this tier. I think that there are some players that we might even hit on that I might prefer over at least heading into this year. I just want a little bit more. They flashed, but let's consistently get this done and just take that top 10 step and stay there for a little bit,
Well, yeah. And you talk about position scarcity, and it's kind of the opposite there. So you have, you're looking at all these linebackers. You already got 12 linebackers off the board, 13 linebackers off the board. Poyer is, one of the earlier safeties, but safeties just seem so deep that you're going to go and reach for someone here when linebackers are starting to dry up and defensive ends are starting, you're starting, to pull into your second,
and don't take me wrong. This is actually, I mean, I love the change that they've done to this. If they've applied that, and that's what we're looking at indeed. And I am correct in what I'm saying. I like what they've done here. They have actually brought those guys up. They have gotten away from the old school, tackle base. So it's not quite balanced. Like I said, I feel like it's a big play type deal, but you can see it reflected, and these are a lot better. I like these. I think they're more in line with today's, formats out there. And you'll see what we're doing. It's just we're kind of picking on those defensive backs, like you said. We're dropping them down, and not because of talent, just based off of if they would have upped that passes defended to 3 or more, we could be talking a whole new ball game.
Absolutely. Yep. Anyone else in this grouping that you'd like to talk about?
Let's see. So we hit Logan Wilson. Already mentioned that I think he should be up there in the top order. Let's see. Harold Landry. I like Harold Landry a little bit better in this format. I think that it's not a matter of him just breaking out last year. I think it was a matter of Jeffrey Simmons and them doing what they did with him last year. I think the whole in order. So I think that he could be up and no problem comfortably heading into this season. At this point, he's still young. He's his advantage is right there, Jeffrey Simmons in that line. It's a meat fest over there. So who's he got opposite of him? I can't remember.
Well, and you look at there's quite a few safeties in this grouping. You have Jesse Bates, you have Minka Fitzpatrick, you have Budda Baker, and Jordan Poyer. I know we're going to talk about safeties on Thursday, so I'll save that question for later. But again, there's a lot of safeties that are still going to be on the board here after that. Let's go with our next grouping. We start off with a safety. We have Jeremy Chin at 25, Nick Bolton at 26, Hassan Reddick at 27. They have him listed as the D end. Kazira White at 28, Devondre Campbell 29, Joey Bosa 30, Danielle Hunter at 31, Bobby Okereke at 32, Josh Allen 33. They have him listed as defensive end. Aaron Donald at 34, Kenny Moore at CB1, the first CB off the board, and DeForest Buckner, 36, the second defensive tackle after Aaron Donald. So just for those that are maybe newer or even just anyone in general, Aaron Donald is a stud. Why is Aaron Donald all the way down to 34?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, by the time you do all the knocking down that we're talking about, though, he won't be. So, yeah, and it's like right now I inherited a DB team that's got Aaron Donald on it. So, and he happens to be the highest scoring guy in the IDP and the whole thing, but I didn't make any attempt to try to trade him beforehand. I've had this team for a little while, and I didn't care. It's worth the home run ceiling, and as long as somebody's throwing money at that dude, you don't tell him and he's healthy. The dude's healthy. He's just now just kind of like riding his prime, he's going to be around as long as he wants to play. And I'm going to ride that. So yeah, by the time we knocked a lot of these guys down, and we're going to hit on a couple more that probably are out of place here.
So you think Aaron Donald's too low?
An aspect of it, once you start getting down, I'm trying to keep that picture in my mind. So the only thing I can tell you right now, he's definitely moved up. You know what I mean? He should be up there. If I look at the whole aspect of where he is, he would be above Joey Bosa. He'd be above Daniel Hunter probably in this format, considering because he would be – he should be up there a little bit more, I would say. I would definitely have no argument to move him up above those two.
And with Kenny Moore being the number one corner, does that elevate him? Is he too low because of that, or is it just
wow? He slipped right by me. Nowhere in this top.
Yeah. So with this format, would you say Kenny Moore, because of the combination of tackles and all the other things he does, should be much higher?
No, lower. Yep. Low.
Too low.
He's low. He needs to be out of this tier, probably not even the next tier. And I'm going to explain why here in a moment, folks. Okay.
Anything else with this group before we go into that?
Let me make sure. I do not think so. Let's see. No, wait a minute. So we just started on that group.
Yeah,
This is the Kazira.
We just started on this group. We got quite a
Well,
few
all
guys
right.
to go
So
through.
Kazira White is kind of a no-brainer for me. It's the simple fact is we too big of a question mark on there to be throwing him up this high in a dynasty league at this point. Let's see something first in Philadelphia. Montez Sweet. It's really tough being the opposite guy of Chase Young and getting consistent production when you have a line like Jonathan Allen and the fellas there hanging out, and they just added a pretty decent profiled interior defensive lineman, I believe, in the draft too. So I think he's could be bumped down a little bit. Josh Allen, which I already mentioned, he could be down a little bit in this. I think there's a couple of guys below him that we're getting ready to mention that should be above him is basically where we're going to be heading. So low, do you have Vontae Campbell? I know, he was below Kazira White for one thing. And then for another, I think he could go ahead. They've signed him, folks, for a couple, 2-3 years here. I know this rookie's been drafted, but I don't think that rookie's going to be ready to be handed the keys even next year, as long as Campbell comes in and does what he did last year. I mean, he owned that team. He owned that defense. He turned that team around on the inside. I mean, from what they've had over the last few years, and he took charge and stayed healthy. So I love the rookie. Don't get me wrong, but there's a reason he's not probably one of the top 3 ranked rookies, or he's right at that door, maybe because of the rest of the class. My bad. So I guess he might be third, but there's a reason he's not a top 2 at the moment. Is Campbell sitting there, and they like him. Hassan Reddick in this, I like him. I would have slid him up. I don't think there's no way I'd put him over Arnold or anything like that after sliding Arnold up. Where did they have Reddick? Let me make sure.
Right there, 27.
27.
Yep.
Yeah, in this format, definitely. I mean, you got Chin above him. I'd do it above Sweet. So, yeah, definitely he'd be up, and he'd probably have already been into that next tier by now.
So let's look at a sophomore. Nick Bolton is interesting. He's the youngest player out of this group, which is a fairly young group. The only one over 30 is Aaron Donald. He's only 31. Most of the guys are around 26, 27 years old or younger. Nick Bolton's 22. They just brought in Leo Chanel. They have some other players there as well. What are your thoughts about him? He seems to be rising. For a sophomore being in the third tier here, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't have a real argument for it. I'll also mention Anthony Hitches. He's been, he hadn't been signed the last I'd seen. They could change the ball game there a little bit, possibly. It's again, I didn't see a reason to really move him with keeping it in mind who was dropping and who was, you know what I mean? I didn't see. I think that he's proved to be the guy last year, and I like to. I mean, basically, what these guys have ranked is a projected dynasty value, and I don't have an argument for it.
Okay. Well, let's go on to the next group. Did I miss anybody?
I don't think we did. Let's see.
All right.
You was asking me about maybe Joey Bosa. Did you want to ask me something about him?
Yeah. Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa, we saw what Robert Quinn was able to do playing opposite of Khalil Mack. Joey Bosa, he's never really had another bookend to take some attention off of him. Mack is also dealing with a foot injury, but obviously the Chargers paid a lot. They believe he's going to be healthy and good to go. What do you think about Joey Bosa having a bounce back season?
I'm going to reconsider this whole situation when it comes time to rank and update our rankings here real soon. I almost like Mac a little bit more than Joey, maybe in Dynasty and redraft this year. They're right there together for me. I'm not sure if either one benefits from having that guy across the road from him. I think they're going to get their level of production that they are available. Problem is I don't think Joey Bosa is the same Joey Bosa we know of. He's been through the ringer a little bit. So, and he's put his time in on that line. So I if Max healthy, I almost might skip Joey to snag up Mac a little bit cheaper if he's sliding down there.
That makes sense. And then the next grouping, starting with Shaquille Barrett at 37, Justin Simmons at 38, Kyle Hamilton at 39, Blake Martinez at 40. I think Kyle Hamilton was the first rookie off the board. Blake Martinez, Von Bell, Shaq Thompson, Jabrill Peppers, Maxx Crosby, Cole Holcomb, Jalen Thompson, Zadarius Smith, and Rashawn Gary. What are your thoughts about that group?
Well, I didn't actually have it listed on my notes there, but I'm glad you hit on Hamilton. I mean, that's a lot of stock. That's a lot of stock put into a guy that we know is talented and knows going to get a great opportunity. But there's a couple of drawbacks. For one, he's a rookie. There's a rookie learning curve. We haven't seen him in action. We haven't seen his role. The way that they run that scheme, they use multiple defensive backs multiple times. It's just almost their base package.
And it's a new defensive coordinator in Baltimore as well.
Yeah, he got him a new toy. Don't get me wrong, but just that's swinging for in a dynasty ranking like this rookie season. It's out the ballpark.
Yeah, he is substantially higher than any. There's no other rookies that are even pictured on this screen. So anyone else on here that stands out? I mean, again, we're still looking at some pretty young players. It's dynasty, so that's a huge factor. You got Shaquille Barrett is the elder statesman, Zadarius Smith. Those are the two oldest guys on the board. Are you still comfortable taking them this high?
Again, I didn't have any red flags go into my head. So yeah. Like I said, I'm looking at that 3-year window. I'm looking at production now, dynasty, I suppose, more than likely in my aspect. I don't know what these gentlemen were looking at, so I don't have a problem. The one that really kind of got me, and anybody that knows me and watches, is Jabrill Peppers. I've been telling people to dump that for a couple of years, yeah, I mean, especially once McKinney, I think I hit it the year before. And of course, Peppers had a decent year that year. And then boom, they turned around. I mean, he did good on IDP. You know what I mean? He was still subpar or something like that for the season and on film. But as soon as they got the Xavier McKinney in there, I do believe it would have been over that year for Peppers if McKinney hadn't gotten hurt. At least as an IDP, real IDP as a tier 1 that he was being promoted as by a lot of people and just by position, but he's up there in New England now and he's buried on that depth chart. Bill likes versatile guys, Jabrill Peppers actually can be a pretty good return man. He's going to fit into that scheme somehow, but I don't see it. There's only a handful that even get a consistent amount of snaps. Missy Dugar's definitely the number one guy that's going to have that. Him and McCourty, he's not going to start taking McCourty off the field just because McCourty's old. He's just backer, but there's still just only so much IDP meat and production opportunity in New England, the way they run that. And if you hadn't sold them, it's probably too late. Yeah. If you can, I would. I think the ride's about over. Unless you you get a lot of points for return yards, maybe. Some injuries. It takes some injuries at this point. I don't think he's going to beat anybody out this year. And I don't necessarily think he's going to be put in that position going forward. The contract, too. I believe the contract was pretty minimal.
Yeah, I don't have the contract numbers, but, someone that's familiar with Jabrill Peppers as a Giants fan, his coverage skills were already lacking. He does his best work when he's down in the box, but he is a smaller guy. And
unfortunately for him, that's his drawback fitting into this scheme because there are a lot better coverage guys there, a lot better, and that's what Bill wants. That's why he runs all those DBs.
His best hope for some IDP is if they put him in sub packages and nickel and have him run, with the linebackers more than the safeties because his coverage lacked. And other than that, on here, I mean, you're seeing a good mix of people. Maxx Crosby, for me, stands out as someone that, this guy's he's
what's he doing down here?
He just got paid. A defensive end is
Josh Allen, Burns. Gosh, look at all these guys that you would take over him. I would. He would be up there probably at least in the second tier, maybe knocking into that first tier, hitting that 10 to 12 guy, possibly even if I really thought about it. That really stood out.
If you look at the arrows here, so there's some green arrows and some red arrows. You don't have to go through all of them, but can you pick a couple of them and kind of talk about why they might be going up or down?
Well, the first thing I'd just like to finish. I'd like to say the Holcomb and Hendrickson and Kearse. Those guys should never be down here either. They're in perfect opportunities. Those guys are like almost, in my mind, at least a tier or two jumper here in these rankings. All right. As long as Holcomb. Cole Holcomb, as long as they believe in him, I'm a believer, and he's not going nowhere. He's still young. He's and he's performing the way Riviera wants him to. So I'm buying. He shouldn't be this low. Trey Hendrickson. Come on. I wasn't high on him going into last year myself. I was questioning what he would be able to do across from Sam Hubbard. And lo and behold, he kicked butt, and he wasn't even realistically a full-time edge rusher for him the whole season, and he's still got the numbers. So he's entirely low. Jaquan Brisker, come on, folks. The guys came out of the blue, but he was just re-signed. He's going to be that same strong safety, the old Canoe Neal for what is it, Gus Bradley, I think it is. Is that the defensive coordinator? Whoever the defensive coordinator is, he's playing that old Canoe Neal safety from the old Atlanta Falcons type scheme.
And these guys are all in the next grouping.
Right.
So you're looking at Hendrickson, Kearse. Those two are in the next grouping.
I guess why is Brisker up so high? That stands out too.
Well, we haven't got to that group yet.
Oh, oops.
So we're still on this one. You're jumping to the next one.
I apologize.
So when we're looking at like Antoine Winfield. Do you think Logan Ryan's signing is the reason for that red arrow?
Wow. You're asking me off the cuff. I think if it is, it's silly. I'm not even, believe it or not, I'm not even sure Logan Ryan's going to be like their answering full-time starter. You guys need to keep an eye on Edwards, because Edwards he sneakily had a breakout year last year for himself. On a personal level, and I think they took notice.
So I'll go with the next group that we want to talk about. So Antoine Winfield to start off, Quincy Williams at 50, Devin Lloyd, the next rookie off the board, then David Long. I hear a lot of people really excited about David Long. Joe Schobert, who's a free agent, but still happens to be up this high. Jordan Hicks, Matt Milano, Zaven Collins, Trey Hendrickson, Deion Jones. We got the Joker. We got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Devin Bush, and then you alluded to it earlier, Jaquan Brisker and Jayron Kearse.
Yep. So sorry, folks. I'm just getting used to how we're doing things here.
You're good. You're good.
By the time I figure it out, we'll be done.
Well, you've got it figured out as far as the IDP stuff. Let us know why Jaquan Brisker stands out as being way too high.
It's the same thing as Hamilton, just at a lower tier level. I love the kid, but he's it's a safety in this format. It's just, if you're going to throw, this is probably maybe where I start hedging in more. Derwin James, Adams, Buda Baker, maybe those top 5 elite guys start coming in. And I'm thinking somewhere around 40. I might start sprinkling them in there if I was redoing this.
Safety 14 is pretty high. There are a lot. You're looking at 64 starting safeties in the league.
Oh, right.
At least.
Yeah.
Some teams, like to run a lot of 3 safety sets, and you're looking at 14 for Brisker. I know he's young, but he's a 23-year-old rookie. He's not a 20-year-old rookie.
And if you look in front of him, if you look at, okay, you got Quinn is killing, and that front seven's not bad in Chicago. You got Quinn, you got a young guy Gibson. I've wrote about, he's coming up on the other end. You got a decent inside defensive line. They're not actually like much of a rushing group, interior defensive lineman for them, but they're not bad. But you got Roquan Smith in front of him in the box. Roquan will probably, in my opinion, I've said it a couple times, if you expect him to be doing the run stopping there in Chicago, don't be surprised. Why would you do that? He's an elite linebacker in coverage. They got Morrow in there. They brought him in. They've already had him wearing the mic. He's also good in coverage, and he's actually a damn solid tackler. So I'm getting, there's a little dime drop for you guys if you remember that old term, but get you some Morrow. He's probably underappreciated here on somewhere. I must not have seen his name.
No, we haven't even got to him yet. There's guys on here that I'm interested in your take on, because I'm, as a casual new to IDP guy going.
Yeah. And that's what I like. I appreciate that, because since me and you've really started working together and here at Gridiron Ratings together in the last few months, I mean, I've gotten to hear you, and it makes me warm and fuzzy that maybe I might have had something to do with that in the past, right? A little bit, because, and I'm like, yeah, you was taking the other day, I think it was during the mock, and we was talking about, who was you talking about? But I was like, and how you got there. At first I was getting ready to say getting defensive, but you got there and you came in like the back door and totally impressed me. And I was like, damn, never mind. Just kept my mouth shut.
I appreciate that. And for anyone that wants to try IDP out, again, it's not, it's just like when you started out with offensive fantasy football. Yeah. You just got to figure it out. And if you know football, it's pretty easy.
I'm going to ask you now, folks, please go over to gridironratings.com, go to my IDP tipster page and the IDP home pull down. I have members only content. I have some examples of a great start sit chart that's been around for years, and I think it's original. It's run by a 5-step formula. It's probably the only place you're going to find this deep of a rolling waiver wire for IDP. There's 2 examples of how I split that up in mid-season. Check that out, and check out those new prices that we got this year. Things change as we grow. We can do things that we'd like to do and pass it on, savings to the customers. And at the same time, it is that middle of a pandemic, I guess, recession. I don't know. What do you say? Everybody's getting paid.
The secondary pandemic.
Right.
But yeah, make sure you guys go to Gridiron Ratings.
Yes, please.
Make sure you guys give, subscribe, and let us know how you like this type of content. This is the first time that I've been on the Getting Defensive as the guest host, and we want to know what kind of content you guys want as we set the schedule up the rest of the summer. And we want content that you guys want to listen to. So comment, let us know what it is that you want, and we'll make sure we get it done. Back to this group. We start, I talked about David Long, and I put some posts out on Twitter, and his name is trending.
He's a little high on here for me in a dynasty league. I mean, he's a good player for the team. All right. He's not an elite player whatsoever. He's good at what he does for that team. So I see him having IDP value, but in a dynasty, thinking even 3 to 4 years, I don't trust it to have him this high. I do like him. Advocate of him, actually breakout call of mine a couple years ago when he first started doing that stuff. Not sure. Yeah, you might remember that. We can go on to Joe Schobert, YZ up here. Just probably hadn't been updated lately. Hopefully that might be the case, right? Devin Bush to me he was a sell last year. He was a sell the year before that. So if he ain't sold, but I'm not sure why he's up here. We're probably going to see exactly what we did last year, maybe a little bit less. It's not a good thing.
Let me ask you about Deion Jones and back to Focon earlier. Mm-hmm. Tennessee's Dean Pease is running the defense, kind of a funnel defense. They're Their the linebackers really rack up the tackles there, and Folcom was the obviously the breadwinner last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's not there. Does Deion Jones, or is there someone else that you have in mind that maybe we
How
haven't
much?
seen
How
yet?
much did Jones fall? Does it say?
Well, he's at 31. It doesn't say where he was.
Okay, all right.
Actually, so this player's position,
Mm-hmm.
ECR, has fallen 39 spots in the past week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so I get it. I get it. Everybody's nervous. I wouldn't be worried. I have not seen the latest. I'm going to mention I have not seen the latest news, but I wouldn't be worried about the injury. It's just a way for him to not get injured, probably, while they decide what they're doing. Until he is gone, I am having a hard time dropping him, and I think this puts a catch-22 and pressure on rankers. I mean, that's what we're here for. But so I'm at that point. I'm actually concerned if he doesn't play for Atlanta this year. I know he's an elite athlete, but he's been used in a special kind of way for a long time. When he was drafted into that scheme at the time, he fit the bill of what they were looking for. That's the scheme's changed. He's not quite a necessity, and especially at that price. So if he moves on, not because of this injury, not because I don't think he's just the same talent, but I'm really concerned that this drop is warranted. Possibly not this far, I'm sure that I'd still be swinging for the fence with him over some of the DBs for sure. Just adjusting him up. I don't know exactly where I would put him at. I still got to figure that out myself. But that's a catch-22. Trick question.
Yeah, no, and just again looking at the board and seeing some of these things, I didn't even realize it would tell us how much. But you can see Harrison Smith. He's a little bit of an older
I think they've
player.
updated this. I really do. And again, folks, I know that I've said some negative things. I want to make sure I get this out again. I love Fantasy Pros in this, and I've worked for him in the past. Did some news stuff for him. It was great, and this is great. Okay, so don't take me wrong. We're not picking on them. There is no perfect ADP rankings or any system out there right now. So anything can be picked apart. Or anything, so we're not picking on anything special with them.
We're using this as a tool because it was the best thing out there, not because it was something to pick apart. Nakobe Dean comes off as, I think, the 5th rookie off the board. If I'm getting that right, 4th or 5th. Nakobe Dean, that everyone watched the fall during the draft, and people really thought that the Philadelphia Eagles were going to go with Devin Lloyd in the first round. They thought they were really going to attack the linebacker position. They didn't, and then they were able to still go get Nakobe Dean, who was potentially a first-round talent, and I believe the 3rd round. What are your thoughts there about Nakobe Dean? Then we'll stay in the same division, talk about Trayvon Diggs, who a lot of people had on my bust candidate list.
Well, hadn't really paid attention to him that much because it kind of fits in the bill with the dynasty rankings for this to start happening with those upper profile linebackers. This is more of where the range should be for them or any of the rookies, probably. Maybe, like you said, I would have started sprinkling in the defensive backs a little while ago. But when it really comes to him, I mean, it's a swing for the fence. Of course, we're going to say the same thing. We don't know. We haven't seen it, so this is a projected type situation. I don't have an argument for him. I personally think he's going to work out in the long run. It might be a bit high. I mean, I'm looking at Curl below there, Bird below there, Mac below there. I wouldn't want May. Cameron Hayward, the guy's 36 years old. I mean, I'm not going to argue that.
Taking Nakobe Dean over Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau.
In this format, Aiden Hutchinson is way down there. I'm glad you really, because I stopped. We talked about this top 72. But either way, I don't like where Xavier McKinney is either. He should be ahead of those guys dynasty wise on a few of them.
And that's what I picked out earlier when we're talking about the safeties and going, man, there's a cluster of safeties in the 20s, back up here and we're going, all right, Jordan Poyer at 22. Do you really want Jordan Poyer at 22? Or do you want to wait 4 or 5 rounds later and
Mm-hmm.
you got a whole list of them. You got Duggar at
Right.
66. You didn't like May at 68, but you got Curl at 71. You got Whitehead at 72, McKinney at 73.
Right.
Jalen Petrie at 77. He's interesting. Jonathan Abram at 75. There's just a plethora of safeties. And then you look at some of the guys, like you're looking at linebackers and you're going,
Dave, we're going to have to make sure that we swing back in the late July or August and see what kind of an update we have on these, because as things happen and evolve, more guys on Fantasy Pros will update their rankings and such. And, again, we're not picking on these.
Yeah,
folks.
there's
we're just
only
wanting to make sure that everybody knows what they're looking at.
Only 2 out of the 7 rankers were on here. And then we're also going to be doing at some point this summer, we're going to also be doing our own ranking show where you guys can pick apart Gary's rankings and tell him what you like and what you hate.
Yep.
So before we get out of here,
you know what I like about those?
Yeah.
Is I get to set the ground rules.
There you go. If you have the mute button, then it's all you need.
Right. Yeah, there was one more that you.
Well, is there any more guys on this list that stand out that you're
going to talk about Trayvon Diggs. I wanted to talk about that fact because of what we had talked about with Kenny Moore earlier. And I said, we talked about, okay, look, Trayvon Diggs is a beast. Man, those interceptions are beautiful. What's the hardest thing to keep repeating year in, year out in the NFL? Interceptions, probably, maybe. That amount, that kind. I mean, even sacks, or I don't know. What was he? 14, 15, 16.
Yeah,
I lost count.
Ridiculous.
I don't know.
It was a ridiculous amount of
right. And they and he's in this format. Remember, folks, the passing defense or passes defended. What I say was 1.5 points.
Yep.
Yeah, 1.5 points. So go look at his scores from last year and see what that knocks that down to, or limits that to, so it's really hard to repeat. So that's really hard to put any cornerback up there thinking that he's, for one, going to remain consistent dynasty wise for 3 years in a row. So a lot of these guys, they become so good, they're shutdown corners. They don't get target. Sometimes they might not be an elite guy, but the guy across from him is less of a talent, so they pick on him more. So there's all kinds of things go, from year to year, what their team's defense is doing in pass rush in front of them. There's no reason to have these guys this high in this format. I'd like to say that there's a reason to be, but if you're going to do that, you need to have at least 3 points on your passes defended to justify having them up there in your top 64, probably.
Well, hey, we covered about 45 of those 72 players. I think we covered almost everybody. If you guys have any specific players that you'd like to know about, make sure you go to gridironratings.com. Whether it's rookies, whether it's vets, we'll have you covered. It's going to be another 2 more months of training camp and off season. We hope that every single one of these players can stay clean off the field and on the field this offseason. But there's going to be a lot of news, a lot of changes. Depth charts have not been released yet. And, we're looking forward to seeing this. But, unfortunately, all these things happen after your draft. So we're trying to get you as prepared as possible now for your draft.
Yep. And for that, we're going to be doing what? Boomer Bust safeties on Thursday, 8 p.m., I believe. Brandon will be joining us, and Dave will be driving the bus again. A short bus, but it's a bus.
It's a bus. Well, hey, I appreciate everybody. Gary, it's time for tags.
All right, man. You can check me out at the IDP Tipster on Twitter. Pretty much my own social. Go check out my work at the IDP Tipster page on gridironratings.com. Find me, DM me, email me. I don't care. Just I'm here. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday, folks, probably 80% of the year. So 85%.
Well, make sure you guys go out. It's a reminder. I forgot about this earlier that we're doing the DeAndre Swift giveaway. It's free to join. All you need to do is just go on there, leave a review on Apple. Let us know what you think about it. Give us an honest review. And then everyone go on Twitter, tell JJ that he should have been here today. Tell him you missed him.
Yep.
And tell him boat drinks.
Right.
We're out.